orchids grow together. Across the world we've grown. Through blooms and roots and seasons, you've made this place a home. Your kindness lifts my spirit. Your passion lights the way. With every word, every moment shared, you brighten up my day. Through the struggles and successes, we are here. Supporting, showing care sincere.
I want to let you know how I feel about you guys.
You're the heart of this journey, my constant resource. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Amazing, inspiring, incredible friends. Together we rise through the lows and the highs. Orchid ninjas, you help the orchids thrive. Every comment, every share, sending videos far and wide. You're more than just subscribers, you're my family worldwide. Through the messy, tough challenges,
Hey Debbie!
Celebrate the wins. With your support, no
And yes, son.
is where the magic begins. From the roots to the blooms, through the rain and the sun. Since you have been here, battles are fun. Your love for orchids keeps me inspired. You're the spark in my world, the fuel I've required. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Amazing, inspiring, incredible friends. Together we rise through the lows and the highs. Orchid ninjas, you help the orchids thrive. We've built this together. It's more than a channel, it's a haven for growers, a place to dismantle doubts and fears, replace them with dreams. With every orchid, we're stronger as a team. You're simply the best, better than all the rest. Amazing, inspiring, incredible friends. Together we rise.
Hey son, hello.
Orchid ninjas, you help the orchids thrive. So here's my heart, my gratitude true. This channel's nothing without all of you. Through orchids and life, let's share every test. And orchid ninjas, you're simply the best.
Yes, you are. Hello. Good evening. Oh, Burr, we have to warm up. We have to warm up quickly. Usually when I start a live stream, I'm freezing because, of course, the nerves are attached and everything. And then, oop, that was not meant to happen. And then I do warm up eventually. But, whoo, the phalanges are cold. Anyway, welcome. This is the first of our monthly Q&A, frequently asked questions from the videos of the month that I have picked out, selected, filtered, and it is a mixed bag. So the other day I was thinking it's like a box of chocolates, you know, Forrest Gump. You'll never know what you get. It's new. I'm not sure if you're going to like the format. It could get messy because we could be squirreling all over the place. I thought, give it a go. So welcome to everybody that has made some time, especially down in South Africa where it's nice and warm. And welcome also to the replay crew. My bad, I'm terrible. I always forget that. So what we're going to do now is get right into it. Debbie, ¿cómo estás? I hope you're doing well. I have two things going here. I just want to make sure that I see things happening. Share screen. How about we go and start with that? Because once we get into the groove, we kind of, you know, get a move on and get going. Let's see if that works. It does. It does. Okay. And another thing. Now, this time I had time to put all the links of the videos in the description that are referenced here. I may remember which one it was, but when I went through and selected the comments and I wrote down all the videos from where these comments came, everything is linked in the description, okay? Just in case you want to go back and kind of listen to that video. Should it be helpful? I don't know. I just thought it might be a good idea. Muy bien. Yes, I do read typo sometimes, depending. But for the most part, I do read typo. Okay, we're going to start off with Barb Lucas. Now, also these screenshots are as and how I picked them out. They're not in a specific order. It's how they loaded up into the folder, okay? But usually we have a very often common asked question about light, and light is all subjective based on our environment. So Barb Lucas says, hi Nina, your video was helpful. That is always a relief. It's always nice to hear. Now, I have this cattleya. Last year she had 3 sheaths, never did bloom. This year she has 4 sheaths and still not going to bloom. She gets a sheath but no buds. So she's under grow lights. Maybe she needs more lights. Okay, now you see, here's the thing. I need to know when with questions like this, the orchid should be blooming size if she's producing sheaths. We understand that. Yes, it could be more light. And if that is the case, even if they are under supplemental lighting, it could be just a question of raising the orchid up a little bit higher to get her closer to the light instead of having to do a major shuffle. Just get the leaves and the foliage up into more closer to the light. Or I had an example, if it's a bifoliate, she was growing very, very vigorously, and every new growth, maybe she had 3 new growths one year, 4 to 7 new growths the next year, and it was always a sheath. She only bloomed once she was strong enough to bloom. So it could be the fact as well that this orchid is still getting her grow on, and even though we see sheaths and the next growths have sheaths and there's still no buds, then at that point in time, it's just the orchid getting her grow on, if she's getting enough light. Now, if you're not sure about her getting enough light, once you've raised the pot up, just monitor to see if there's any freckles, anthocyanin developing, etc. Just monitor that and see if that, when that happens, you know that you've taken the right initiative. On the other hand, she may just need a little more time, and for that reason, she's throwing out blind sheaths. There's also one thing that when we do, now, Barb's orchid had 3 sheaths, never bloomed. This year she had 4 sheaths, still not going to bloom. The question is as well, when Barb says it like that, you may have 4 sheaths going, but the orchid is not due to bloom because it's not her bloom season yet. So that is the third option in a case like this. Some sheaths will stay green for the orchid to bloom. And then once the sheath goes brown and the orchid didn't bloom, she won't bloom. Some orchids have brown sheaths for the longest time, like a guatemalensis, for example, and out of those brown sheaths, there will be blooms. So this is why I picked this question, because there are so many variables here, and I thought that that could possibly be of interest if nobody picked this comment up, or in hindsight is listening to this stream, how the variables can differ depending on what the orchid is doing. When is her bloom time? It's not always light. Sounds to me though, Barb, you have a very vigorous orchid. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do for the next stream is actually highlight where the questions are. So know that at any point in time, throw in questions. I'm watching the chat. I'm just going through what I picked out. Make sure that if you have questions, stop me. Yes, there is a little bit of a delay, but you know, at least I've got my screenshots in front of me. And I do hope that it is somewhat readable. I don't want to close out the left window bar because of the way the mouse moves. I just hope that maybe you can read the comments as well if I'm not going to read all of it and you want to read the whole thing. Hello. Yes, Linda, I managed to throw in a reply to your reply just before I went live. Welcome. It's good to see you. At least you have a bloom. That's a good thing. I don't know if you saw my reply previously. I was about to screenshot that comment today and I thought, no, I have 15 that I'm going to cover and I want to see how the time goes by so that it is an efficient stream and I'm not just, going on, droning on and on and on and on. Thank you for joining, Linda. I hope you're having a good day. Okay, so off-topic questions. I love those. Never feel shy to ask a question that is not related to the video. And it was about the Rhyncholalia digbyana orchid. Sorry, I've got a frog in my throat all day. Right. This comment here I picked out because of the different way to deal with roots that are suddenly growing. Rhyncholalia digbyana is a wonderful orchid because as a species, she is not shy of growing roots. And Linda, you know that. So she has hers in a basket with cocoa husk and everything. And it started to resemble an inverted porcupine. Isn't that wonderful? That means this orchid is growing beautifully, loves her setup. However, as this is in a basket, all the roots are growing down. And the concern is, of course, to keep that hydrated during the summer. So I suggested, I don't know what you've done, if there was anything that you've already done now that you're in the chat, Linda. I suggested either, I know this sounds crude, but just bear with me, like a makeshift pot that you can then clasp over the basket to contain the roots inside, where you can mist into that pot that serves like a little catch, container for moisture, and then hydrate them or don't let them frazzle out that way. And if that is too cumbersome, then a little garbage bag can be tied around the bottom of the basket, poke some holes through to allow for ventilation, mist it, snip a little bit at the corner of the bag, and let that be the draining point. So I picked this one because I thought it was also, a wonderful problem to have that many roots growing, and maybe give some suggestions if somebody else has a similar problem, how they can, at least for the summer months, minimize their workload and not lose such an excellent root system. So you see, you don't want to cover the pretty basket. I get it. You don't want to destroy the visual. Sometimes for an interim period of time, it might help to do so, at least for the digbyana. So there's that. Okay, the next question I picked was, again, every video is in the description of this stream, okay, for you to click and then go back to from where I picked these out. And I tried to title them in such a way that they made sense with how we are talking through the stream tonight. Well, today, this evening, whenever. Okay, Nurse 3898 also asked, light and temperature in the winter is key. Oh boy. Yes, 100%. Just moved my Miltoniopsis back to last year's spot because too much heat where it is now, and she's looking sad. I liked this comment because this viewer saw the signs and symptoms of the orchid and then moved it back to where it was happy. And sometimes we want our orchids with us, but sometimes where we put them, they're not happy. So clearly here we have an example where it is necessary to move an orchid away from what we wanted to have happen, but the orchid showed symptoms and the viewer corrected those symptoms. And I do believe that Miltoniopsis is now so much happier. Also, what I wanted to point out with this light and temperature in the winter is key. I may do a small follow-up video in the future about this, depending on what's happening outside with my orchids. We shall see. Because of my physical limitations this winter, the rack is still on the east side, and I've got Prostechias out there. Warm to hot growing orchids. My Rhodantha citrina is out there. I've got everything going on in the blooming alley with orchids that normally would be coming in and out during the winter. And this light and temperature in the winter is key thing, is where I am probably going to be able to determine, by the looks of it now, we're only 50% through the winter, I'm going to be probably able to determine that light in the winter is key. The temperatures, not so much, all right, within reason. So allow me to be your guinea pig. But the orchid that has, because of my situation behind me, the orchid, if it doesn't get light, it cannot photosynthesize. With that, it weakens. And then even colder temperatures, it cannot support itself through the cold adverse conditions because of the weakening and the lack of light. So I am about to say that if you have any problems or if you want to test it out, let me think of, give me another 4 weeks, because it's looking good so far. I'm hopeful. I'm about to shift that balance. That light is more important. If the temperature is not up to standard, because of the light, because of the photosynthesis, because the orchid can get energy, she is more able to counteract anything that could be temperature-wise not to her liking. I hope that makes sense, because I've lost orchids here indoors. Even what I'm doing now, I'm losing orchids because they're not getting light. Their temperature is a tad warmer than outside, but the ones that are outside should not be outside, like the Prostechias, but they're getting light. And while I have some damage, it's not like I've got rot going on or cold damage or pseudobulbs or anything like that. So, okay, watch this space, because I'm needs must. I'm not exactly thrilled that I can't do what I normally do, but if we can get something out of this, this is going to be great, even for me moving forward with my collection, because losing orchids is no fun, I can tell you. So Linda says, I found a basket to put underneath that is the right. Fantastic. That's great. I like that. That's good news. All righty. So next one, Sylvia Beichert. Did I understand you correctly that a Cattleya which has failed to bloom needs less fertilizer and more light? By the way, do Cattleyas require less fertilizer than Phals? All right, so I don't exactly remember where this question came from. That's not really relative, but if I misspoke or didn't express myself clearly that prompted this question, I apologize. A Cattleya does not need more, how do I say this? A Cattleya that is not blooming doesn't mean it needs less fertilizer and more light. What we're trying to do with our fertilizer regime is to get growths that are going to be big enough to bloom. Now, once a growth is matured, the thing with the fertilizer is a thing that, let's just say, depends again on which orchid you have. If a Cattleya then throws out another new growth, you continue fertilizing. Will that jeopardize blooming? And my answer to that is no, because if the orchid wants to bloom, it's going to bloom. Fail to bloom, usually we will always fall back on the light. Yes. So there's that. That's why I picked this question, because it was a little bit of a brain tease for me. What I was, I don't remember what I said in that video, But whatever your orchid is doing, you want to favor new growths all the time. New growths always give new roots. Your orchid gets stronger. If you choose to reduce the fertilizer in order to force the orchid to bloom, then it'll possibly bloom, but it'll bloom anyway because you're still giving fertilizer. If there's a new growth starting at the same time, I would not reduce fertilizer levels ever, unless you've got salt buildup on the surface of your pot. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't go down that route. You can invite issues that you've never had with an orchid before by reducing fertilizer levels. Again, environmental, those are influences you have to take into consideration as well. I would like to say don't do what I do, but I'm forced to do what I do. And given the chance, I wouldn't do what I'm doing because I've got my lights on and I've got temperature that are adequate for my orchids, all right? So this question is pretty much, I'm assuming indoor grower, controlled environment. Always give your orchids the fertilizer that they need, regardless of whether they are about to bloom or not. And especially if a new growth is growing. So then the follow-up question was, do Cattleyas require less fertilizer than Phals? And in my opinion, the standard Cattleyas, let's just say medium to large, compared to a complex Phalaenopsis hybrid, which I'm assuming is the case in this question, and not a novelty phal, a summer bloomer. Medium to large Cattleya, medium to large Phalaenopsis, both have the same kind of fertilizer concentration because they are both very, very heavy feeders. So there's no distinguishing the two. The Phals may need a little bit. Let's just say if your Cattleya stops growing and is going into a phase where she is not actively growing roots or a new growth, then you might want to back off on the Cattleya, stop fertilizing, just water with plain water, but you don't stop fertilizing Phalaenopsis orchids because they're continuous growers. That's the only distinction. So the size of the two orchids, basically you're actually fertilizing at the same concentration to your preference. All right, so we've got some questions. I'm glad that made sense, Debbie. Thank you. It's not something I would have done voluntarily, trust, but it sure is making my little brain cells tick. It really is. And goodness me, if it works, some of my other ones next winter are going to be outside because I can't stand what I'm seeing happening in here. It's just that now I find it's too late to move them outside because they didn't get the casual temperature drop as the ones that stayed outside. Don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, it's definitely not recommended. But let me just say, if there is something to be gained out of this, stop it, then we are all going to be the wiser. At least it would prove a theory of mine, which I could not ever really come out and say. I've been saying it a lot about light and photosynthesis and energy, but not in conjunction with a warm to hot growing orchid being able to tolerate temperatures that go down to 48 degrees Fahrenheit, approximately 8 degrees Celsius. That's just no bueno, but we'll see. Excuse me, just one moment. I've got to mute. Evacuate ribbit. Okay. Alrighty, I found, okay, got that. That makes, the light makes sense. I lose at least 10 orchids every winter and my temperature never goes under 18 degrees Celsius. Oh, that's a shame. That is a shame. You have lights, but they do not reach all orchids. Okay. I mean, I hate to add to your workload. Have you ever thought of moving them, shuffling them sporadically? Let's say every actively growing orchids, 3 weeks under lights, Non-active growing orchids, the ones that are not actively growing anything, bring them a little bit away from the light. Have you tried to shuffle your orchids in such a way based on their activity? Or if they're all actively growing, maybe do every 2 weeks a back and a front, shift the orchids according to everybody gets a little bit of light. Because, you know, here's the thing, in nature, we have cloudy days, you know, sometimes also 2 weeks of cloudy days, like moi in southern Spain, who'd have thought. But have you thought about shuffling, Danya-san, back and forth? Or giving priority to the ones in active growth and the ones that aren't currently? Let me know. Julian Sun says, it depends on the fertilizer, though. Too much nitrogen can impede flowering. That is true. With MSU and other orchid-specific formulas, it's not an issue. That is very true. Too much nitrogen can impede flowering, but what is too much? That is me just being now, you know, going a little bit further with what you've said. What is too much? I, for example, am only doing calcium and magnesium and calcium nitrate during the winter. No regular fertilizer. None of mine get regular fertilizer for reasons that everybody in this chat knows. I'm going to actually add, let me take notes here. I'm going to add my conditions. If somebody is watching this on replay, the video of my conditions into the description. My description. I was about to write my description. My conditions into the description, because I don't want to bore everybody with what's going on with me. I'm just seeing names here. You know what's going on. And I think this might actually help. So if you're not familiar with my circumstances, my situation, then please go and check that video out so that you understand where I'm coming from based on why I'm only doing calcium nitrate and calcium and magnesium. That might be better, more helpful. It's a 12-month comprehensive breakdown of what I'm up against. Now it may also make sense why I'm talking about orchids outside in the cold. Watch that video. Okay. Debbie Sanford, if photosynthesis is the engine, absolutely it needs to be at peak performance for everything else to be powered. Yes. Yes, but who is going to throw their collection outdoors when you see the temperature minimum? Okay, we can then play a little bit with the lower end of our temperature preference for XYZ orchid. And wouldn't you rather just be on the safe side and say, nah, let Ninja Orchids take care of that and vamos a ver what happens? We shall see. But I can tell you that the Prostechias indoors that are not getting enough light, they're dying. And the ones that are outside that are getting enough light, exposed to those, not yet. I'm not seeing anything untoward. And I mean, I'm smiling, even though I've got dying orchids, but I'm smiling because it's another nugget of intel that I'm absolutely, I just love it when, you know, I don't know, see my face and nod. Oh, okay, that's great. I'm glad I could give you something to think about and do. I'm sorry to add to your workload. Just give them a little bit of, you know, a little bit for you this time. Next time it's your turn, and back and forth. Awesome. Yes, there's also the average. There's also the average. Yeah. It's a very, how can I say that? That statement is very, it's an absolute, which is also, I don't know what you're saying. Sorry, you really can't type on an AZERTY. I don't know what that is, Julian. But if you're going with averages, then some might not be too happy. You know, you can't take an average with a bulbophyllum, for example, and no, sorry, you can't take an average with a bulbophyllum and a phalaenopsis. It will grow well, but you can't take an average with a cattleya or a laelia. and expect it to perform to its maximum potential and bloom. See where, yeah. One day, Julien, son, I would like to have you as a guest because you come up with things that take my mind. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of a fur baby argument at my feet here. Excuse me. Yes. Anyway, King is being a big bully to Baloo. I don't know if you're interested, Julien, son, but you come with the comments that make my brain go bing. Fantastic. I love it. Alrighty, moving on. Let's go to the next question, see how fast my mouse moves. I know some people are tempted to increase the day length to compensate, but it doesn't work that way. 100% agreed. I see people giving their plants 14 hours every day with supplemental light. 14 hours where our orchids grow. If anything, they will get 12 hours minus dusk and dawn. That makes 11 hours. And then, of course, we have the north and southern hemisphere, etc. But let's just say 8 hours of supplemental light. It's going to be fine. It's perfect. And if you think that it's too little, 10. But 12 and 14, I've also heard 16. So thank you for that. Thank you. It's very stressful, as a matter of fact, to expose any plant to that amount of light influence. It's a stress inducer. So there's that. I appreciate that, Julien. You came in right as I was saying that you come out with comments, and I'm like, I can hear the wheels turning. Okay, Orchid Ninja Bob Sun said, this is a members video. Okay, struggling with cutting flower spikes. And he usually lets the stems dry before cutting the stem. Is this okay? Absolutely, 100%. I was demonstrating in that members video, orchids in bloom, cutting flower spikes, but the only reason I cut them while they were in bloom and the spikes were not green, were still green, was because I wanted some color for that video. So yeah, no, leave them to dry. I still have my Tenebrosa spike with the brown sheath after blooming. I haven't cut that one up at all. So it is definitely risky to cut a spike when it's green because it creates an open wound, 100%. So leave your spikes to brown if you can take it, if you can handle it. And that's not the problem at all. Actually, it's more advisable. However, if you want your Phalaenopsis orchid to stop with the branching and give it a rest and then allow for some vegetative growth to happen, cut the green spike all the way down and it'll be absolutely fine. And if you're very concerned about the open wound, dab some cinnamon on that thing and it'll be just fine. All right. Their metabolism is CAM, so too long day prevents them to photosynthesize properly. Coming in with another truth bomb. Julien Sun. I did a video on CAM, by the way. Didn't garner much interest, but it should. It should. Alrighty, so that was a members video. And that's why I took that one out, because of me demonstrating green spikes and then, you know, wound opening. But I have cut many a green spike. I've never had an issue with, because I've cut a green spike as opposed to waiting for it to brown. And now if you hit the structure, of course, that's frustrating, but because of that, I demonstrate in that video how you keep all the sharp, pointy bits away from any structures. It's the safest, cleanest, tidiest way, and it gets rid of 99.9% of the spike without hurting a leaf. Okay. Hello, obrigado, Fernanda. It's good to see you all the way from Portugal. Good evening. I hope you're having a wonderful evening, all snug and warm. Thank you for taking the time. Okay, so I do have a question. Is it okay for me to be on camera? And I'm not fishing. I know what I look like. I know that I mainly look disheveled and I don't have all the, I have nothing really going for me. But is it okay for me to be on camera, or do you prefer actually not? Because sometimes it could be distracting. I don't know. I would really like your feedback on that also in the replay. If you have anything to say about, I'm not offended. I know what I've done to myself in the past years. I know. And depression takes its toll as well. But it is what it is. I've got what I've got. I do my best with it. But if it's distracting, I'm okay to be off camera as well. So just let me know. Okay? And I'm not offended if you say, yeah, switch the camera off. Absolutely not offended. All righty. What is the brown liquid applied on the cut? Okay, I get that quite a lot, and that video is also linked in the description because there's dragon's blood versus cinnamon in order to seal wounds. Dragon's blood is like the betadine of the African continent. At least before I came to Europe, when we had cuts, scrapes, bruises, whatever was ouchy, hurting, bleeding, dragon's blood was our go-to. I didn't know the fact that it was that fancy. Now that I'm in Europe, I'm like, yikes. We used to throw that stuff on us like there was no tomorrow. But I also took a screenshot of my own reply because I always forget the species name, which is Daemonorops draco. All right. That is mainly growing in Sumatra, the island of Sumatra. The whole climate of Sumatra is starting to change. This is making this dragon's blood so expensive now because the environment for those trees it's starting to deteriorate. So many of them die. They have to be a certain age as well, very, very old, in order to produce the sap, which is the dragon's blood that we call dragon's blood. Usually dragon's blood comes as a crystal in incense form for burning purposes, etc. It is also, please this is not medical advice, but for stomach aches and etc., we used to ingest it as well because it would calm the stomach down if we had food poisoning and such. But I don't do that anymore. I use it for my orchids. And it has its advantages as well because it's a liquid. It can get into tiny spaces where cinnamon could be a little bit tricky to get into really tiny spaces. It could blow over roots, desiccate roots. So dragon's blood is a great secondary, let's say, option, or it can be the primary option. You don't need cinnamon if you have dragon's blood, but it's a great option to have where cinnamon could be a bit tricky to get right into, let's say, an infection or a cut or something like that. Anyway, that video, the pros and cons of the two, how I apply it, when I apply it, that is also linked in the description. Baby, I stop. Thank you. Okay, thank you. You heard me. I said thank you. Sorry. I know. You're teaching me things. I'm trying. I promise I'm trying. Thank you very much. All right. Because sometimes, because I talk with my hands all over the place and stuff, not always looking into the camera because I'm trying to make sure I do what looking at the screen and the chat and this and that. So anyway, all right. Okay, that's fine. That was one. Thank you, Fernando. I appreciate that. Okay, good. Okay, Danya-san, I appreciate that. I'm actually quite comfortable in front of the camera. It's worse for me to be filming where I'm trying to avoid being in the camera because I have to check angles and make sure that I'm not in the shot. But I'm comfortable being in front of the camera. I just don't want to do it every day because sidebar, I'm sitting here now talking to you in an environment where the wind doesn't blow. And you think my hair is wispy now? It looks disheveled? When I'm out and about with my cap, mic, and everything, yeah, I'm not really sure. That's where I sort of kind of like draw the line. So, all right, good stuff. There's two dragon's blood with different properties. There is, yes. But both of them will do the trick when it comes to sealing wounds, keeping the bacteria, and killing off the pathogens for our orchid. Both of them will do it. It's probably where you're probably referencing, Julian's son, the one you ingest as opposed to the one, not sure. Let me know. The incense one maybe is a different one. Not entirely sure. I never used I never used dragon blood as incense. But I did go down the rabbit hole once to see, because a viewer from India once asked me, I can't get dragon's blood here. I only get it in crystals. So I went down the rabbit hole to figure out how to make dragon's blood out of crystals. It's pretty laborious, labor intensive. It would be a labor of love, but it can be done. Question then is, how stable will it be for how long? That's the one. That is the other species. Thank you for putting that into the chat. Dracea cinnabarini. I should actually remember that one. I don't know why I don't remember that, because when I see cinnabarini, it should be the name that comes to me faster because of cinnamon, cinnabarini compared with dragon's blood. Anyway, that's the bridges I create in my head, but that's the one. Thank you very much, Julian son. I appreciate that. Okay, moving on. You have as well? Tanya san, here's to the wispy hair. The little ones that really want to grow long again like back in the day, but they're like, yeah, shucks, we're gonna fall out before we do any growing. And then I want to thank Better by Fish as well for a super thanks. I don't want to forget that. Everybody that watches the videos, likes the videos, shares my videos, and leaves a comment, etc. Love you to bits. And the super thanks is the icing on the top. So Better by Fish, shout out to you. Thank you so, so much. That is so greatly appreciated. Okay, and then we come to Michael McCarthy. This was my 4N video, and I'm trying to not get too into the weeds with videos like these unless a specific question is asked. Then I might do a little follow-up video just addressing one subject. But Michael McCarthy is a treasure of information, so I've included this comment right here, that because of my video, I remember saying that 4N is usually more pricier. So I would like to make a little bit of a disclaimer here. Probably in the US, 4N isn't that much more expensive than 2N anymore. In Europe, so you can see Michael says, if the 4N is artificially induced, although chemical treatment doesn't guarantee 4N, the most expensive 4N are the natural ones, which are very few found in the wild. For that reason, the high price. So then he elaborates, there's also 3N, etc., and which I didn't get into. I didn't want to dig deep, because when I'm even doing the narration, I'm talking 4N, dee. It all sounds like mumbo jumbo in my head as I speak, even though it makes sense. I can only imagine to somebody that was watching or listening to the video, they're lost or can get lost. So yes, it makes no sense that 2N times 4N equals a 3N, but I appreciate Michael for adding that in here very, very much. Meanwhile, I don't know who it was. I don't know if that was you, Fernando, but somebody left a comment as well. I just know that I replied that my two parents, or whatever was going on with my weirdo, I was about to say neostylus, Vandica stylus lucneri, they went to an orgy but landed in the wrong address. Okay. I know. You had to be there. I thought it was funny at the time. Anyway, so my other thing, which I didn't elaborate on too much in this video, is that as a lay woman, lay grower, that is not so well versed when shopping for orchids, I include myself in that. If I'm looking and I'm seeing 4N and I see the higher price tag, I'm like going, ooh, Do you want to? Do you need, must have? I have a feeling that if not already, it's going to be another little opening doors for scamming people out of their hard-earned money. Would you be able to, let's say you shop online, know that this is actually a 4N and you're paying more for this one as opposed to the other one that is a 2N? My guess is, based on a picture, no. Now, would you be able to determine that if, for example, you are shopping the orchid and actually see it? I think my answer to that would be no as well. And if I'm wrong, please let me know. And please let the rest of us know how you can visually determine if you've got a 2N and a 4N next to each other and you're about to buy one. Let me know what you think if you see a huge difference. It is so easy in this day and age to just type a 4N on a tag. How many normal orchid names are already mislabeled when they arrive? A lot. How easy is it to print a 4N onto a tag, add a few more, dollars, euros, whatever it is, your currency is, and then scam a person out of their money? I say it's pretty easy. And it's frustrating. I don't like to be paranoid about these things, but I like to protect myself as a consumer. And if I have this feeling, I like to share it. And then I'll take the backlash. If I'm wrong, I'll take the backlash. I'd rather apologize than assume. Pollen and eggs require half the N's. Yes, okay, but in mathematics, Julian's son, when you look at 2N times 4N is 8N. Even 4 minus 2 doesn't give 3. Now, I'm not a math guru, but I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. It's just that if I try to talk through that in a video, it's either snooze fest or the message didn't even hit the basic message. I don't know. Anyway. Yes, they're usually more vigorous and adaptable. Yes, absolutely. I agree with all that. But you got a seedling, 4N, same orchid seedling, 2N. You're going to be able to tell that because the tag says 4N, it actually is? Anyway, that's just me. Just paranoid about these things. Orchid Ninja Nina-san says, oh, this is another member's video. Yes, okay. I have added a video into the description, which I thought was going to be quite important. It's been a while since I filmed that video, but it explains a lot about how a root grows, stops growing, reactivates growth. And this member video is talking about this stuff with regards to mechanical damage, etc. Maybe it's public, I don't know. Anyway, if the root tips are damaged when they're still quite small, will the root continue to grow, or is that? Now, my experience from what I see with my orchids, let me say, if a root has not, first of all, if the orchid has a branching root system, a tendency to branch, that's paramount, okay? Some orchid root systems don't branch. But if a root is already, by my estimation, 8 centimeters long, which is about 3 inches, okay? And it is a branching root system. If the root tip gets damaged, it will branch because the root is long enough. Anything shorter than that, even if it is just 1 inch or less, 2 centimeters or less, that root may not reactivate. The root tip may reactivate, but it's going to be hard. You have to pamper it with moisture, etc. I don't even know if sphagnum moss is going to make a difference to reactivate that root tip, but I picked this question because that video that I have linked in the description talks about what you can get away with when it comes to damaged root tips and how the orchid can overcome that and what length, etc. So if that's of interest, then there you go. That's why I picked this comment. Debbie Sanford says, my 4N has never got its grow on pretty ever, and after getting knocked off. Okay. Well, I hope that the 4N vigor will actually help her recover. I hope so. Let's keep our fingers crossed for that one, Debbie. Julian Sands says, all the 4N I've had more growth in average than the 2N, but if you don't have both, under the eyes. Exactly. It's very difficult to tell because that would have been my next question, Julian San. Do you have a 4N of XYZ and the 2N of the same to be able, and then maybe three of that, three different ones? I would love to be able to try that, but I wouldn't be able to get anything out of it for as far as information is concerned, because I can't even trust what's coming in the box. Oh, good question. What does N actually mean? Let's look that up. I've never specified that, and I'm not going to start talking in circles. So what is the meaning? Because I can word salad this one. What is the meaning of the N in 4N orchids? Julian's son is probably going to be quicker than I am. It is the number. Let me copy and put this into. You see, I would not have been able to say that in as few words. The number of sets or level of ploidy. Now, Michelle Fucarino, hello. It's good to see you. All right. Now, let's do, because we're here, ploidy. What is ploidy in simple words? That's my kind of language. Ploidy is the number of chromosomes, and I have just, Stinky, 2 days ago I was thinking about you. I was. Telepathy, don't you love it? I was thinking, gosh, I hope they're doing well. Okay, ploidy, I didn't add that first. So the numbers, there you go. Do you see, Julian's son? I am going to drag you up on a panel as a guest one day. There we go. I have an official, unofficial assistant here. It's awesome. It is good to see you, Stinky. I honestly did. A couple of days ago, I was thinking, gosh, it's been ages. And I hope they've been doing well. We got the holidays behind us. New Year. Happy New Year, Stinky. There you go, Danya's son. She can. Oh, I'm seeing the hearts. Thank you so much, Stinky. I appreciate that. Julian's son, Danya's son. There you go. All the questions answered. I'm so grateful for you, Julian. I promise you that. Okay. Let me get rid of that and let's go back to. Okay, we did the root growth damage. So now, is anybody bored yet? Is this working out okay? Let me know in the comments if this is okay. I mean, like literally we are doing squirrel orchid topics here. We're like boing, 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 boing everywhere. So let me know also on replay, how do you find this format, and we'll continue. I mean, I have set to continue it through, being that this is the first one. Maybe I will improve on my delivery as we move forward. We have 11 to go. You're welcome. Okay. Nadine Acosta in Southern California. All righty. This is about growing spikes, and it was specific under the video of the Phalaenopsis, where I have the thumbnail, no spikes, etc. And she wanted to try the temperature drop relocation of the orchid to see if it triggers a new spike. Her question was, if I place my orchid outside only during the day, where the temperature is about 10 degrees, and we're talking Fahrenheit cooler, would that stimulate the new spike? I'd bring the orchid back in the evening since the temperature drops quite a bit overnight. Absolutely. No matter where you put any kind of Phalaenopsis, when you want to induce a spike, trigger a spike, or hope to grow a spike, if your indoor temperatures are too steady, it doesn't matter if you have to actually take them out to get that temperature drop. Now, in my video, I suggested 18 degrees Fahrenheit temperature differential from what the orchid could, let's say, need in order to trigger a spike. So I suggested 18 degrees from the norm down, obviously not as low as what I'm doing right now. You don't want to have any cold damage on your Phalaenopsis. That's not what I'm saying, but 10 degrees is pretty close. So no matter where you grow, if you need to introduce spikes or want to, and your temperatures indoors are constantly steady, etc., and there's a phal that's not blooming, shove it into a place where it will get a temperature drop, and it should do the trick. Don't forget the light, though. Anyway, Nadine is going to put hers outside, so she's going to get plenty of light. Because I've got the temperature drop, but I don't have spikes because I don't have lights. And it's been a pretty gloomy winter so far. And if it's been sunny in the morning, I was like, yay, a little bit of light maybe back here. By the afternoon, it was overcast. So we've got perpetual darkness going on. Ooh. Anyway, my Nightbot has woken up. I don't know why they call him Nightbot. He's always sleeping. But Nightbot has joined the conversation. This is my little, so that everybody in blue, they don't have to do any work. This is your personal assistant coming in, showing you that I do have other things on offer instead of my voice, my videos, etc. Alrighty. Stinky says she likes this format. I appreciate that feedback. Thank you very, very much. And also know that at any given point in time, if you have a comment and you want it specifically addressed, again, with other opinions in the chat, if you have a comment under any of my videos moving forward towards the next live stream, which will be in February, last Saturday of February, please specify in the comments, can you please pick my, take this comment and add it to the live stream? And I will, all right? Because sometimes what I say, you've got Julian Esson, or sometimes Michael McCarthy, has great replies, responses, opinions, information that could benefit you as well. So if it's something you would like to hear from me, you'll get your reply. But if you would like to see other opinions, I will specify that as well. And then let's see what the chat has to say, right? The more intel we get, the better, no? In my opinion. Okay, I read a study finding that it's the average temperature has to drop rather than nights. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be constant. You see, what happens with orchids, okay? Orchids bloom for us because we love the blooms, but they bloom in actual fact to get pollinated, so it has nothing to do with our viewing pleasure, all right? So what else do we suggest to do to an orchid if it won't bloom, apart from the fact we think it's blooming size? Let's take all of that out of the equation, okay? A blooming size orchid that just won't bloom, like my Kimmy. We induce stress. And that reaction of stress can push an orchid to bloom. Happens a lot with slipper orchids, right? Non-blooming slipper orchid, what do? You repot. They don't have to wait. We can repot a slipper orchid at any given point in time. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, rain. But anyway, I need to do something, but I can't do it indoors. Anyway, so you introduce a level of stress in order to trigger spikes, because stress means the orchid is in trouble internally. If we humanize an orchid, it's going to panic stations. Something's going on. It has to respond. And the only way it can ward off an attack is to protect its kind, which pushes blooms. So whether you do it at night or at day, or it's a consistent drop, doesn't matter. In order to induce a spike, you have to trigger stress. Dropping in temperatures is stress. You see the... Yeah? I'm loving this format so much, but I promised my husband I'd go for an extended walk for him. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you to your husband as well for allowing you to stay for as long as you did. Thank you, Linda, so much. Enjoy the rest of your day and maybe watch the rest on replay. And thank you for your support as well all this time. I appreciate it. Have a fabulous walk. Oh, okay. Okay, your keyboard. Julian says when they don't bloom, I put them near the bin. It usually does the trick. Well, here we are humanizing our orchids. They recognize a bin. That's stressful. That is stressful. Alrighty, here we go. And Danya, if you're still here, I do have a question about the mug. If everything arrived okay, I'm going to ask you outright here. I know I'm being bold, but I don't like to impose with too many emails. Story of my life. So let me know if everything went well with your mug. My dad always said, no news is good news. So I'm hoping everything is okay. Isn't he amazing? Isn't he amazing? I will have him on panel one day. Dun, dun, dun. Ninja Orchids with special guest coming 2025. All right. And you don't have to be on camera, Julian. Okay? It's not an obligation to be on camera. All right. We're back with an Orchid Ninja comment. Root damage on aerial roots. Same video as before with regards to the root length, etc. Now, Orchid Ninja Bob's son grows roots like spaghetti-o. You can literally put one of his orchids on your head and you've got bangs. You're going to have to push them aside in order to see. It's marvelous. It has proven to save the root. Yes, talking about the layman damage. Too much fertilizer, not enough humidity, fast evaporation, salt stay on the velamen, burn the velamen, but the root still functions. So the question was, on longer aerial roots, if the velamen is cracked, but the root has not broken, how viable is that root? Does it and can it provide nutrients to the orchids? Yes, absolutely. I'm sure that many of us, bandaceous orchids, or even let's say in the pot, we snap a root and it continues growing. I have my Vandacostylus lucneri, where the stele is completely exposed. It's brown, it's nasty looking, it shouldn't, all the cortex tissue around it is gone. So it's there's a huge gap, brown, steely, nasty, and it just continues growing. I mean, this root is approximately 7 years old, continues growing, and it currently has an active root tip. So sometimes if the crack is just like halfway through, like here's the root and the crack just reaches the stele, it's not a problem. Sometimes when the crack is already dangling at a 90-degree angle, yeah, that's not going to do much because the stele was damaged. The stele is the actual root. Everything around it is just the spongy tissue that keeps the root hydrated. So if the stele is broken, that thin piece in the middle of the root, if that is broken, it'll probably stop the root growth. Keep the stele intact. Even if the velamen is cracked, the root will probably continue growing. Sans problems. It is so annoying though to crack a root. Or you have this whole perimeter of a pot and then you go grab it and there's a single root tip and you know it's there. Okay, Julian's son says, precision, the bin is the unheated place. It's, oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. Stress via temperature drop. Julian also says, on aerial roots, how do you get the sesquipedale roots to grow inside its pot instead of systematically going, bossery, what can I tell you? What can I tell you? I am, at least the Tomorrow Star has some roots that are going into the pot. I am now banking on the keiki roots to do the job because they're heading down, whereas the others we can see always are heading out. But the sesquipedale, the roots just come straight out and they're tough as nails. You can't even manipulate them. From jump, you can't. Even once they get to this length, there is no bendy. I have no idea. No idea. And I had one root grow by itself into the pot, and that one failed after a couple of years, unfortunately. But that is a beast. I mean, I love the roots, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm thinking it's going to be a challenge to hydrate that, and I so do not want to wrap those roots in that hob filter material. But if the orchid has to stand a chance at anything, I think I'm going to have to. It's going to look so horrible. I have no idea. But if they're going to invade another territory, then ooh la la. Are they at least growing into that media? Oh, speaking of sesquipedale, goodness me, we're almost into February and mine is still working on the buds because of no light. Usually they bloom end of December, maybe mid-December. I've had them maybe once in bloom during the holidays, actually holidays proper. But they have finished blooming by now, usually, because of the lack of light. No sunlight coming in either. I still have the buds, but I'm not entirely sure if all the blooms are going to make it. Interesting. I don't like it, but it's interesting. I tried to... Yay! That's all I needed to hear. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry that I didn't have the delivery time right. Seemed like it was sent to you by snail mail. I am so happy to hear that. Thank you, Danya-san. I appreciate it. Julian said, I tried to put a piece of wood as obstacle to get it to grow. It broke the wood. It broke the wood. How delicate are our root tips for any form of damage? But let them do their thing and they'll go, even the fine little roots. I mean, I'm amazed with my aphyllum. They're coming around the other side of that cork, and that cork is like this thick. I love it. Just love it. That's crazy though. Sesquipedale, like, oh, watch this. Up for the challenge. Alrighty. Next question from Russell Lewis, establishing Rupiculus cattleyas. Now, very long time ago when I was doing my yearly Floralia hauls, which I don't recommend that nursery at all, I have stopped purchasing from them, and even if I were to be able to afford it, I would not. So, but back then, Rasa actually brought this up, and I thought I would share, because why not? Rupiculus cattleyas, my favorite. Okay. I'm going to read her question. How is your Isalkiana doing? Great. Not blooming. She's outside getting rained on, but doing great. And this is Rasa talking. I saw a video of Rupiculus lalias growing in the wild in Brazil, and they were growing in quartz sand. Mine was doing so poorly. I figured, what's the worst that could happen, right? Removed most of the lava rock and topped it up with sand, and it's getting better. Bingo. Another person that I like when you see something and then you look at your own and you're looking and you're comparing natural environment and you're taking little tidbits of information, even though it doesn't really make sense in one's own mind. I love this, and I encourage people to do this when they look and they see other videos of natural habitat, look at how windy it is and why an orchid can be in full sun in the summer, then check the elevation and understand that just because you're growing the same orchid doesn't mean you can have it in full sun during the summer, because your elevation may be sea level and your wind is not a cooling factor. For that reason, yours will burn. But what I also liked about this comment was the fact that the sand, I established a lot of my Rapiculus Lalias very early days with a tiny top dressing of sand, not from the beach, but from the garden center. And it worked. And so I picked this one because of the two, the keen eye, the understanding, trying it in cultivation. And she said it's getting better. I love that. And I encourage that. And if anybody needs help with that, I know that Laura Stansfield, I don't know if you're going to be watching the replay. I hear you. I haven't responded. I like it because it makes sense. And this exactly is the topic that could also go into that video. We're going to have to figure out how we're going to do that, because I definitely want you involved. Fantastic comment under today's video. I don't remember if it was today's video from Laura Stansfield. I have not replied yet because I have so much to say, and I'll zip it now. All righty. Okay. How many more questions do we have to go? I know I said 15. Do I dare scroll up? How are we doing for time? 1 hour and 10 minutes. All righty. I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Okay, next question from Johnny Cavallaro. Bulbophyllum reticulatum. If I use synthetic sphagnum fibers and only on the surface Akadama or Kiriosuna, is it useless? No. I picked this one because of the synthetic sphagnum moss that was making its rounds. I don't know if it still is, but it was a thing in old. In 2016, 2017, 2018. There was a lot of talk about the synthetic sphagnum moss, and for some reason it's just sort of dipped out. I was very tempted to buy it. I did not. I'm glad I did not, because I got Ceramis instead, and I much prefer that. But what I like about this comment is, A, anybody listening, anybody in the comments, anybody in the chat right now using synthetic sphagnum moss. Try and say that quickly. Anybody? Because I like the stuff. I would use the stuff. I'm glad I chose Ceramis, but that's because of the way, rehandling, etc. Ceramis is easier on the roots. If I were to use it, I get the same kind of moisture retention in my pot using Ceramis. Synthetic sphagnum moss, those roots are going to grow in there and it's going to cause damage. But because it's inorganic, it's uppotting is not an issue. So there's that. Keep that in mind. But definitely for bulbophyllums, they absolutely love their humidity around the pot. And there is no problem mixing something like Akadama or Kiriosuna for the surface in order to make sure that there is at least some kind of top dressing. That's why I picked this comment. I liked it very much, also because anyone still use synthetic sphagnum moss. Julian Sun. Synthetic, I gave up. It becomes hydrophobic once it dried. Oh, interesting. I wouldn't have thought that it would become hydrophobic. So, in your opinion, if I may pick your brain, Julian, in your opinion, sphagnum moss also becomes hydrophobic once it gets dry. Based on the two, sphagnum moss rehydrates and then stays hydrated better than synthetic moss once hydrated? Because I'm asking, and I don't have sphagnum moss or anything with Stan the Man, but his little moss culture will become hydrophobic from day to day to day. And I have to start around the base and the outer edges, because me just misting him or watering him from the top, everything's just going to pour out. And that is live moss. And it does that. So question between the two. Both get hydrophobic when they're dry. How do they react once rehydrated? Stinky says, I get the appeal, but it's fairly expensive, and I think something like microfiber is comparable, 100%. Agree. It was just such a big deal back in the day. I don't know about how important it is in the United States or whatever, but everybody and their orchid growing was on and on about synthetic sphagnum moss, and I'm like, it's like the wicking material for your pot. You can get the stuff, on Amazon, the white thread, but that's beaucoup dinero compared to a mop that'll give you hundreds of threads because sometimes you have to cut them. I sound like such a miser, don't I? No. I promise I'm not. Sphagnum moss has a tendency to even the water on all the volume, while synthetic just stops wicking at all. Interesting. Well, there you go. Nugget. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm actually going to highlight that because this is when somebody speaks from experience. This is awesome. So Danya-san says, I cannot give cold temperature to my filament. Nope, it is not. It is not. Absolutely not. One thing is an orchid can tolerate low temperatures, but it does not necessarily need them to bloom. You will see that some Dendrobium sapphilums, especially in this specific example, they grow beautifully and bloom beautifully in Florida, and they still have even their leaves on the cane that is blooming. So, and not all across the board, but I also know, Danya, that your summers get very, very hot. So 18 degrees is a cool down in respect of what the high temperature is. Make it a sense? That's where it's all relative. Same with fowls. It's all relative. So if she's big enough, she should bloom. Okay, another comment about sphagnum moss has a tendency to, okay, we're thinking, Julian Sun says, you put dry sphagnum on a water bowl, it will drink. And synthetic just won't. Love it. Now I know. Every time somebody asks me a question like that, I will tell them. Julian Sun says this. Write it down. Fantastic. Thank you, Julian. All right, Michael McCarthy. This scares me because I just did a mounting thing with all my Dendrobium Varioda keikis, and eventually I'd like the spiller, the thriller on top, the spiller on the bottom to be my aphyllum keikis, maybe one day. So we have a beautiful mount that does everything gorgeously. I do not know what species that wood came from. This was why I picked this question, because it is paramount to know that there could be wrong wood for mounts. Now, I said it was a locust tree that I got my big branch from, where I did that keiki mounting video. The wood was not the topic. It was actually the pantyhose. So if all else fails, if I have the wrong species of, let me just read his comment. I just forgot. You see, I go off on a squirrel, talk about pantyhose, and all of a sudden I don't even know. Hey, locust. I said honey locust. Locust tree. Anyway, that was not the point. The pantyhose thing works no matter the wood, okay? If I got the wrong wood, the hack was the pantyhose. That was the theme of the video. Anyway, I don't want it to be a black locust, because after this comment, the neck hair stood up. And I Googled. I have not been able to walk to that tree to take pictures. I was going to email Michael. This is what I got. I tried to remember Googling, and I'm just freaking out now. Anyway, so please make sure please, 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 that you know that the wood of your future mount is actually adequate for orchids and they won't die. All right. So I'm just going to read this out in case anybody else is in a similar situation. My concern is the type of locust tree. A number of them are allelopathic. Sorry about that. Scusi. A number of them are allelopathic, meaning they produce chemicals that are exuded by the leaves and bark, which discourages other plants from growing in their vicinity. Those chemicals remain even after the bark is dry. So if you see roots stopping growing and or lapid leaf yellowing, that is the reason. And black walnut has been used for centuries for a weed barrier for the similar reasons. I hope I do not have the black locust species as a branch. Now, I've already lost some leaves, but I think that was because I'm observing now. I think that's because of the sun, because these keikis were cultivated in the blooming alley where they were in constant bright shade, never exposed to direct light. And when I hung it onto the west side, I knew it was going to get direct sun on a sunny day. So I've had some leaf drop. It could also be that now they're off the cane. So it's too soon for me to say whether this is going to be a problem, but I'm definitely already taking notes as to what I'm observing happening based on still not knowing which species of wood branch I have. So there's that. Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, Danya crochets little. Oh, that is so sweet. Oh, I love that. Stinky says I would go EpiWeb over that thing. Yes, EpiWeb is a good thing as well. And because it's so pricey, Michael McCarthy had the genius of idea of using scrubby pads. That was the whole evolution of my inorganic mounts. He said scrubby pads, and we ended up with scrubby pads, hop filter material, a combination of the two. Hop filter became inorganic sphagnum moss just because of one reply where I said, I can't afford EpiWeb. And Michael McCarthy said, why don't you try a scrubby pad? And I'm like, thank you. Oh, dumb. Yes, and also they grow their roots in them. It's wonderful. That's one of the things as well with EpiWeb. Up pot. Unless you're quite sure that all the roots are dead, because you're going to do a lot of damage, and then make sure you have a new root system on the way, because setback looms when it comes to EpiWeb. What's that? Baby son. What's that? Question mark. By the way, you look so cute with that little sophronites. And yes, I'm saying sophronites on purpose. It's actually a cattleya now. But I look at that bloom, it's a sophronites, right? Right, Fernanda? Let me know what's that, Bebe-san, if I can answer that question, or if that was an internal conversation going on in the chat. All right, wrong wood for mounts. Make 100% sure that the wood you choose is ideal. Yeah, and watch the space to see what happens with mine. And Michael McCarthy again. Whoop, that was a little bit too enthusiastic. And Michael McCarthy again. Spider mites can cause this as well. This is the very short little nugget intel video of why a new growth failed on my Dowiana, also linked in the description if you want to double check what Michael is saying here about spider mites and new growth failure. Mine did not have spider mites, thankfully. But he mentions that you might not see the spider mite damage on the plant, then you peel back the bracts and you will see the damage caused by the little buggers. And about a week later, you will see the mite damage on some other part of the plant. Yeah, well, this is important because there could be many other influencing factors why a new growth will collapse on itself, not black rot. That video and the reasons I specify in that video, not black rot. All right, but What I didn't know, because I've never had the problem, and I find it important to mention, that video will show you damage that could possibly be from spider mites. So if you are in a climate that is warm and dry, you may be doing everything correctly. You've got the temperature, you've got the airflow, and it's not black rot, and you see a new growth going clunk. Everything is green, but right here where it goes clunk, check for spider mites, or and treat at the same time. So that's why I picked that question. Julian says, I tried to use a terracotta pot with a blocked drain hole as a mount full of water. We'll see how it works. I tried to use a terracotta pot with a blocked drainage hole as a mount. Oh, I get it. I get it. Click, click. It's like those cool tubes that were also quite popular back 2016 all the way until they weren't anymore. It's like a cool log, but you're doing it with a terracotta pot. Yes, absolutely, that's going to work. 100%. And you know what? Push comes to shove. Julian, je t'embrasse. Okay, don't worry. On screen, je t'embrasse. No, but anyway, you just gave me an idea. If my little cakeys don't like that wood, they're going on terracotta slabs, and I'm gonna screw them to the wall or hang them in the hedge. Either way, solución. Boom, chakalaka, I love it. Absolutely love it. I am so honored to have you as an orchid ninja. I am so honored. Oh my goodness, yes. Gosh, I mean, we have pretty Andalusian terracotta slabs as wall decorations. I'm gonna put those things there, and I can still put a phelim cakeys for the spiller. La, 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 la. I'm so happy. Now I'm gonna look at that mount tomorrow and go, maybe I should change them now and show another video. No, anyway, vamos a ver. But you gave me plan B, because I'm misting that mount now. I'm like going, what if I'm gonna hurt them? Meanwhile, something in the hedge came out of the hedge and chomped on the new growth of that one keiki. If you didn't see the video, there's a shiny new growth on the first keiki that I put up. The growing point has been taken off. So that's not because of the wood. Moving on swiftly. Oh, what's going on? Why did I just get we're still up and running. All systems are green. I just got a bling bling in my ear. Anyway, so moving on swiftly. How would you guys go about making a terracotta slab? Yes, just breaking a pot if that's what you want to do. Or a tile, like a roof tile. That's all it is. Or if, for example, usually some people have a terracotta pot that is broken or cracked or chipped or maybe not being used, and they put the shards into the bottom of a container so that the water doesn't drain out with the soil too quickly. That's all it is. Make sure it's not glazed, or just raw terracotta. It's fabulous. I know exactly where I want to go and get some. I know exactly where I want to go because I've been staring at them for years. And one time I went to the garden center with my daughter and I looked at them and I said, wouldn't orchids look great on these? And she goes, she was literally this. You and orchids, everything as well. Wouldn't an orchid work this? I could work this with an orchid. She's like, It's wonderful being on camera. I can show you things instead of talking through them. Anyway. Or a terracotta saucer. Perfect. Even better. Not glazed. I insist. Okay. Pat's Freund. I recently had the same thing happen to one of my Dawianas, actually referring to the same video. I'm curious as to when those outer sheaths should be removed. Sometimes I think I remove them too soon, too early. They lose strength in the section of the plant. Yes, I would never never remove a sheath that has any semblance of any moisture in it, ever. Preferably, the sheath should stay on for as long as possible. And the only reason we remove them is because, in my case, and many other people's cases, is because we don't want pests to land underneath and just do their thing there, unbeknownst to us. And sometimes we just want to remove the sheath in order to help a growth out if we don't have high humidity. In my climate, for example, sometimes it helps the roots also to come through, break through, instead of going, like growing up that little sheath and ding, they come out at the top like little snail eyes. We don't want that. We need them in the pot. So never, if everything is going well, temperature, airflow, and everything, leave that sheath on for as long as possible. There is one exception, and I've demonstrated that in a video. It's when it's cold. You can't put airflow on your orchids because it has an even more of a cooling effect. There's too much humidity in the air because it's cold, and you can see that a growth in a sheath, it's risky. The dampness of the sheath, the liquid in the sheath with the sugars in there in order to, help protect and grow that growth, it's dangerous territory for rot. And that is when I do peel the sheath off and down. I think I made a short about it, but should I add that one to the description as well? Por si acaso, you never know. Hypothetically, peel sheath when damp. How about that? Peel sheath when damp. Gosh, I hope I remember my own notes tomorrow. Into the description. Okay, right. So only when damp, when cold, airflow is not feasible. You need to get airflow around that pseudobulb. You want to avoid rot. I just don't peel it all the way down. I just open it up like, petals on a bud and let the air flow, and I leave as much of it, as possible. Removing a sheath too soon, even if it is dry, doesn't mean that the pseudobulb is completely mature. Removing it too soon, you're watering, you're fertilizing, the pseudobulb maturing, the cells behind the sheath of the pseudobulb are still very tender, haven't hardened off yet, can cause them to crack. All right, that's when you see sometimes pseudobulbs with a crack in them, even though they've hardened and sealed, etc., they've healed, there's no rot, nothing. That is sometimes because the sheath was removed prematurely. Not always, but often. That is the reason. All right, so let me have a look-see. Then you stick a yogurt pot in the bottom with a piece of microfiber, and you get your Julian Sun coming in with all the deets here. It's fantastic. Oh, yeah, the terracotta salsa is awesome as well. Not glazed. Moving on. I insist with the not glazed. Nurse 3898 also had another wonderful question here. Happens a lot, especially when we get orchids new. They've just been shipped, new growth, excite, new roots, excite, and then suddenly everything stops. So there's several reasons for that. And this is a classic example. That's why I picked this comment. So this happened to two of mine. Speaking of growths, I bought them in October and November. And this is her in New Jersey. And the growth stalled. I'm sorry, I'm not sure. If I misgendered you there, I apologize. And the growth stalled. So we've got two things going on here. The growths have only stalled. They got them in October, November. So we're coming into winter. We've got acclimating going on. One reason why growth will stall. We've got the fact that they were in transport. The growths will stall because of acclimating the stress. The orchid is now going, yeah, we're not doing this. Could have been already a little bit too cold. And all these factors can cause a growth to stall. Shouldn't happen with your growth in cultivation, with the exception of a video that is in members. And that is if you have conditions that are so ideal for an extended period of time before the winter hits and the orchid is like, hey, I can grow another new growth. And then the winter hits and it's like, maybe not. And the growth will stall. Then the growth will harden the bracts at the bottom. Usually it rots out, dries out, doesn't continue growing, but not in this case. Stalled growths that are still green, they may continue growing depending on how big they are, what orchid it is. They may continue growing once they understand their new environment and stop protecting themselves from expending too much energy because of the stress that they have initially experienced, be it shipping or moving it from one place to another. Even moving, picking an orchid from a nursery, putting it in your car, taking it home is stress. It's moving it from where it was to somewhere new, and then it's like going, yeah, maybe not. All right, so that's why growths can stall. As long as they stay green, there is a chance that they will activate again when they've figured out that you mean well. And there's no problem. The moment you see the base of the bracts at the base go brown, that's probably the indicator that that growth is done and the orchid is going to find another avenue to start another new growth. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that is helpful to anyone that is also experiencing a similar situation. Shipping is usually a big factor when it comes to new growth stalling. We're all excited. We see the orchid, we see the new growth. We're shopping. I'm getting an orchid with a new growth. And then, why isn't it growing? There's your reasons. And also, yes, I'm referencing a lot of members' videos, and that I'm putting a lot of focus with the Orchid Ninjas now. I have been ignoring them, not ignoring, but I've been avoiding or not being able to fulfill my obligations, my perks for members. I didn't do it all of last year. And I'm changing the direction of my focus with regards to what YouTube has done to my channel without having any explanation to my person at all. That's why I'm talking about member videos, because there's a lot of focus and content being now thrown at the members. They're probably thinking they're getting spammed. Some may go public. I don't know. For the time being, there's no plan of those videos going public. So that's why I talk about that, but I will also then occasionally pick out comments that refer to that, because the information could be valid on a broad, for other people as well. Cool mount. Yes, let me type that in. I'm sorry, I was babbling. I wasn't paying attention to chat, baby-san. Cool mount, I probably misspoke the first time. Cool log is the other one, and I think cool log, the latter, is actually more correct. How much parts per million of calcium in winter for which orchid, Danya-san? Which genus? How big are they? Are they in active growth? Let me know. Which orchid? Are they in active growth? And how big are they? Those three things. Okie dokie. Did I stall? There we go. Okay. Joe, I hope Joe is doing well. When would be a good time to start shaping the new leaf of a Cattleya? The video is linked in the description as well, even though it's an older one, but how to train your orchids, this is, you see, you can start the moment you see the eye swelling. So Joe waited until it fully matured and then used the Velcro tape to connect it to a nearby bulb, and absolutely that is 100% possible. And a lot of the old sheaths of his are splitting by themselves, which is great. You want, if possible, to let your sheaths do that on their own, and then if you want to tidy your orchid, then you can let the sheaths go on their own. So the main thing here I wanted to point out about training new growths. You don't have to wait for a new growth to be mature before, or at a certain size, before you pull it back. Usually 80% of the time, you can start when you see an eye swell, you can start putting your orchid in the opposite of where the light source is. So let me see myself on camera because I'm dyslexic. I'm going to get this so wrong and everybody's growths are going to go that way. All right. So you have your pot. Oh, I'm going to have to take this comment down. Sorry. Okay, hide message. There we go. I go. So for once, I need to see myself. Okay, so you have your pot. I am the light source for once. Okay. And then you have, let's say, your new growth. This is the lead. Okay. If you have your pot coming this way, because everything's growing towards the light, hello, that would be me. You see a new eye swelling. You want to turn the back of the orchid to face the main light source so that your new growth looks over its shoulder like, excuse me, I need that. And it'll come up and grow more into the pot. Does that make sense? All right. It will force the new growth to come up and grow into the pot. Now we get some gangly growths, Rhynchodendron Cavagata and Verde, that looks a little bit like it's doing yoga, even though the light can be perfect, which normally it is, and still the pseudobulbs look like this. But you're still getting it back into the pot, as opposed to that same pseudobulb that does a C on a natural curve. If it were to grow towards the light, as in, me, it's just going to go right across that way towards the light. And this is one of the things that hopefully I have some questions like these in the summer, because we'll be sitting here as well, but it'll be daylight and then I can prepare and bring an orchid, because it's exactly what happened with one of my Cattleya intermedias. I have two, we split them in the live stream, but one growth was showing me signs that after the splitting stress, a virus could have activated. And I thought, I'm not going to toss you, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you, contrary to what I just described, and let that growth grow perpendicular out of the pot, straight towards the light, so it stays far away from all the other growths. Even if that orchid is virused, at least I get a better understanding. Is it virus? Is it a fungus? What's going on with this growth, these two leaves? I don't want them anywhere near the other leaves, which are fine. And since that growth is there, all the other growths have been trained with the light source, the new growth, but opposite ends. So you're bringing the growth back into the pot. I probably really messed that up. Let me know. I wonder if I should get my whiteboard out. Ed, headstones and headlines. Hey, I got your notification for the stream. I'm sorry. I will be on replay as per. It's so nice to see you. Thank you so much for taking a moment to stop by. I hope you had a good stream. Yeah, I saw that and I'm like going, yeah, I'll be busy. Oh, I hope you're doing well and staying warm. Right, so I hope that made sense. I'm going to move forward so that we don't get the lag, and I can always revisit this, okay? And I'll get the whiteboard out if we need to. And Orchid Ninja Bruce Sun, I want to thank you for this super thanks as well. On top of that, on a members video, you are so appreciated. Thank you very, very much. So kind of you. And I'm going to dispute that. I'm going to say, no, you're an ace. Okay, so there's that. Oh, I know, Headstones. Headstones and Headlines covers true crime. To everybody that likes true crime done in a reasonable, responsible, respectful way towards the victims of such tragedies and their families, I go to Headstones and Headlines, and she's very current and very on top of things and doesn't just focus in the United States. If there's something going on elsewhere that's caught her attention, she will cover that. Mainly though, I like, no matter what she covers, I like she's respectful to the victims of the families, those that are dealing with the trauma. And extremely, extremely efficient when it comes to the delivery of her information. I love it. So if you're into that, check out Headstones and Headlines. Actually, I don't want to break this off, but we're at the end of our comments. Before I put the link, oh, you're a mod, Headstones, put your link into the chat, please, just in case there's any, true crime people like myself that grow orchids as well. You never know. Please do so. Dania Totelli says, okay, wait, Dania, I'm coming to you with a question. Let me shop. Okay, I'm going to finish my sentence. Let me shop staring my screen. You can tell the dyslexic in me is getting tired. Let me shop staring. Let me stop sharing my screen is what I wanted to say. Because I have something else in store for you. What I'm going to do for these streams, if anybody sends me emails, I get quite a few. I love them, especially when you send me blooms. And sometimes I post them on community posts. Thank you, Headstones. I appreciate that. So if you're into true crime as well as orchids, then please sub up to Headstones and Headlines. She is based in the USA, so her timings are so much more conducive to the majority of all of you, I bet. Okay. And also for Europe, by the way, speaking of which, normally I can participate if I went live myself because it's still a reasonable time of day. Anyway, yeah, I was saying usually let me see if this will open up. Usually I share. Will you? Thank you. How kind. I share blooms in community tabs. I love doing that. But what I'm also going to do is when I don't share them in community tabs because life gets in the way and I'm not sure if I can reply to comments, they're going to be appearing in our monthly Q&A. So opening up a bloom that I got sent. I am not familiar with the name, but this came from Orchid Ninja Bobsan. Isn't she pretty? To me, it looks like there's a Cattleya coccinea in that little one. Now, what I do know about many of his compact Cattleya hybrids is they come from Sunset Valley Orchids, and of course they have reduced the size because we know that Cattleya coccinea is a miniature, and I think there's a lot of coccinea in this bloom. Whatever she is, she's gorgeous. So that was the first bloom that I have saved from the emails of January where I got blooms sent to me. And I'm clicking on my streaming software picture to change the picture because I'm having a duh moment. And look at this. Also from Bobsan. Isn't this just sensational? I am not familiar with the name, but there you go. Okay, on Messenger. Oh, okay, I'm going to have to go and get that. Julian, I'm going to have to go and get that. Alrighty, so I have no idea what this one is called, but she is a beauty. Good evening from southern Spain, Sinner. It is so nice of you to stop by. I appreciate it a lot. Lots and lots. Nice to see you. Fist pump. Okay, so those are from Bobsan, but I've got more. But wait, unless you don't want to see viewers' blooms, that's fine as well. And you know what? Actually, the plan was to show you intermittently some blooms before I continue on with the next, cluster of questions. What can I say? First timer. We will do this again, my friends, if you can handle it. And for sure, because that was the plan. Cleanse the palate, between all the questions and all of that. Anyway. At least I didn't forget, so there's that. Alrighty. Now, here's a wish list orchid of mine, and I'm just like, oh no, I want so badly, but all I can do is enjoy vicariously. Robert Forrest sent these Diocatlia chantilliles. Oh, I had two. I wanted to grow this orchid. The first one had fusarium. The second one arrived with a rot in the stem, in the rhizome. So, yeah. Can't be too greedy. I did get my white bridal though, but anyway, isn't that beautiful? Ooh, I love this so much. It just confirms that I still want one. I've lost you guys though. I'm shifting screens here on my desktop. It looks a mess. Okay. So yeah, this is from Robert Forrest for our viewing pleasure. Thank you, Robert, so much for sending these. And then I wrote the name down because I got it. Vanda Pusillum. Yes, I'm going to use the proper name, Robert. Anyway, I wrote the name down as Ascocentrum Pusillum. I'm being a besserwisser here. Why not? But Vanda Pusillum, isn't she darling? I can't wait for my Ampullathea to bloom. She's been outside all winter, but she's one of the ones that can tolerate colder temperatures. But there's a lot of anthocyanin on her, a little bit too much compared to how much light she has had. So there's that. Anyway, it won't be for lack of light that she won't bloom. It won't be for lack of stress that she won't bloom. We'll have to figure out other reasons if my Ampullathea doesn't bloom. Anyway, not to be outdone, I have one more for you. Stop jabbering and start focusing. Nice, nice. Listen to your inner voice. And this one, so much fun. Sensational image. One of my favorites. I also have this one from Stephen Goddard. Paphiopedilum spicerianum. This one reminds me, and I will repeat it, and thank you for humoring me. Everybody that knows how I assimilate this bloom, that little face, that is all the little colony of people or creatures that are in the locker of Men in Black. There. Isn't that amazing? Love it. Love it. Great image with all the detail on the fuzz. Okay. Danya. Let me go back to Danya's son. Active growth, Cattleya and fowl medium size. Then I saw Rifat. Thank you so much for being here. It is so good to see you. I really appreciate the time. Thank you. Calcium nitrate tetrahydride at winter for my Phalaenopsis. I was going to say 200, but you're saying milligrams. I was going to go with parts per million. So I don't know what 200 milligrams per liter equates to. I used to use the nitrate, the tetrahydrate. I have one that is not as potent anymore. Oh, it's so good to see you, Rifat. Thank you so much. Simner! Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. It's so sweet. I don't have a song. I was thinking of something, but I haven't done it yet. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's so kind of you. Oh, you know, I spoke too much, but I appreciate that. Thank you. Muchas gracias. So I say 200 parts per million for Phalaenopsis and medium-sized Cattleya that is in active growth. I hope that makes sense. And then if you would like to go a teeny tiny bit further at 6.7, 6.8 pH. But I would like to know, Rifat Tariq, when you use 200 milligrams per liter, what your total dissolved solids are. I'm curious, because I want to learn about this, because I don't go with milligrams. I go by parts per million, but I don't want to put you on the spot either. I'm not if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm just super duper interested just to get an understanding. I've not done it that way, and maybe, others. So I want to, that's it from me, unless there are any other questions. These are the questions for the month of January that I considered that could be of interest for more eyes, more ears. Not entirely sure if they met expectations. If your question wasn't, this is difficult for me because I don't want to exclude anybody. I get a lot of questions, but sometimes there are some that are more, let's say, for the general public, they could be more beneficial than just between you and I in the replies. So this is not to offend anybody that has commented and asked a question in the comments of my videos for the month of January. All right, that's not what this is about, okay? But again, I'm going to repeat it. If you want a question in the stream specifically, because you want also other opinions from people that are participating in the stream, possibly in the comments afterwards, please specify that at any given point in time. It can even be a joke. If you want to share something specific for the stream, just say, please include in this month's live stream. Done, all right? We do say orchids and giggles. Sometimes we can't giggle because of orchids, and we don't always get an image like this, looking and staring back at us, looking all hairy and weird and, black, locker room creatures, men in black, that stuff. Anyway, you get my point, right? Put it by the trash pan. Julian, Zygo by the bin. Just kidding. I'll be right back. Sinner says, love the orchids. Remind me to tell you about... Okay. Okay. If you if you wish to share. Your last live stream, I have to say, Sinner, was pretty amazing. Being there at the Orchid Show in Santa Barbara, just because of where you worked. Yeah, drool. Anyway, so Julian-san, is there a trick to make a zygo reflower? It has to mature its next growth. If it was flowering before, there's no reason why it shouldn't flower. Usually, a loss of a root system is going to cause a zygopetalon to just not bloom until it has another substantial sized root system in order to support the blooms, because those blooms, high energy consumption, they're fragrant, they last forever. The spike has to grow a while the pseudobulb is not even mature. It is already growing, so it is relying on roots from previous growths. The moment there's something wrong with the root system with the zygo, it either just goes downhill or it may not bloom until another root system has been established. Tried cold, dried, light, they never reflower. And they're making crazy big pseudobulbs instead. So I wouldn't go dry. I wouldn't recommend dry. Not that I'm in your environment, but try to keep them evenly damp across the board, Cold. The roots grow through the pot. So roots aren't the problem. There you go. And they won't bloom. I would then, but you're light. But when you say you've done light, light is relative as well. Mine are not going to bloom because they're not getting enough light. My leaves are spotty. I'm about done with zygos and anything zygo related just because I don't have the conditions, and I hate seeing orchids struggle, period. So how about maybe, you're getting crazy big pseudobulbs. How about you stop the fertilizer? That's stress. If you need to reintroduce stress, you do not want to stress them with a repot like with a slipper orchid. That's a completely different story with zygos. Stop fertilizing. And then keep the light levels, let's say, at a good Cattleya light level, because they can take much more light than people give them credit for. It's under the grow light enough for the Cattleyas. Well, there you go. So you've got the light levels. I would stop fertilizing. Okay, she says, but I don't stop fertilizing my Kimmy to get her to bloom. And she's growing like a weed. It's just I personally don't want to stop fertilizing her. I love her. She has so much stress to endure in my conditions, be it sometimes too cold and often too dry. Just let her grow like a weed, branch like an idiot, you know, like she's going Medusa style. But if you can make it, stop fertilizing. See what happens. Seem they've got plenty of energy in the back bulbs. So, okay, so I am going to, whoa, if you would like to see one more thing, I do have one more thing in pedo. While I can yap away, check the chat, etc. Just something that is happening on the west side of the patio that is very pretty, if I may say so myself. Look. Try the diet. Yeah, that's right. So that's my Vandertop Brian. Very slowly, painfully slow. And, you know, but there's 7 spikes on the go. She's giving me a great pleasure. Poor little thing. Too cold. You can see that she's struggling, the stress with the yellowing leaves. She'll be fine. This is not her first winter outside. So beautiful. And then, Tanya-san, thank you. Mille grazie. Thank you. So these are the first 2. And I thought, I think we can speed it up a little bit, no? Because I'm really going slow here. You see, I'm standing without my sugar cane and I'm shaking. So I slowed the footage down a bit. Otherwise, you'll see my hand shake because it's that bad. I couldn't do this while resting on my sugar cane. So here are the other 3 in the fan that's growing into the Schlumbergia. I got to do something about that. I got to get up on a little step ladder, carve away a huge branch. I don't want the neighbor's Schlumbergia intruding upon my Vanda. I mean, come on. Sacrilege. And besides, there are some white dots in that Schlumbergia. I want to check if it's scale. That's not happening either. Yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous. Did I just stop the whole thing? That was not the part of the plan. There is some motion in this video. That's why I took it. Will you play? Is it that slowed down? I didn't want to freak you out with my shaking. Because I can sit here until the cows come home. I'm sat. My legs are at a 90-degree angle. I'm keeping my posture. Everything is aligned so you don't hear any sounds of sharp pain where I can't control myself. Sometimes Baloo looks at me like, and he can't help me, but you know, so I can sit here, but standing there taking this footage, this is not working. Anyway, let's go back to there. Pretty image. Anyway, I slowed the footage down. Maybe I'll just post a video one day and let you see that. All right, no more questions. Goodness me, we've been yapping away for 2 hours. I've been yapping away for 2 hours and I've had your company for that long, which I absolutely appreciate. Thank you so much. So that was like 13 questions, 2 super thanks that I wanted to acknowledge and thank those for. I'm going to go with 15 for the next stream as well. I mean, who knows? Maybe less. That's all up to you. But we're sure we'll figure out something to talk about on the last Saturday of February. Okay? Always the last Saturday. I will be here, whether it's a public holiday, no matter where in the world, including Spain. I will be here. And if I can't, for whatever reason, I will let you know with all the means and tools that I have at my disposition. I will let you know. Sometimes I'll tell you why, but sometimes I might not, because I don't want to be a crybaby. Okay? But the plan is every Saturday. But either way, we are doing this. whether we're going to push it forward or not, but February, all right? So thank you very, very much, everybody, for being here. This is going to just close it off. Hasta luego. Make sure that you have yourself a fabulous rest of the weekend on the one condition, though, please, that you stay safe. Take care. Bye.